Hello and welcome to episode 6 of this series. In this episode, I have decided to talk about two-way data binding in Lit and show you how to create a form to receive some input from the user and to update the book list component. So these are the goals that we would like to achieve in this episode. We are going to learn how to handle form inputs. We are going to implement two-way data binding. So basically it means that we need to sync our form inputs with our component state, right? Two-way data binding. We would like to update reactive properties based on the input that the user, provides. And then we want to talk a little bit about event handling with form elements. So let's talk about forms and data binding in Lit. I don't know whether you've worked with React or Angular or other, front-end libraries and frameworks. If you have, you know that React, compared to Angular, doesn't provide two-way data binding. In Angular, you can use, ng model to create two-way data binding, but in React, you need to do it yourself. Lit is like React. So Lit basically uses unidirectional data flow. Uni means one way, right? It is very similar to React. It means that data only flows down from your properties and then events will flow up. So again, if you remember, I think in episode 3 I talked about this. If you want to pass some data from the parent component to the child component, you're going to use properties. If you want to pass some data from the child component to the parent component, you're going to use events. So this is the way the data flows in Lit components. So there is no built-in two-way data binding syntax, like for example Angular. So you need to manually implement this with component state on input events. So we are going to leverage state and property to hold our form input values, and then we are going to have let's say event listeners like @input, @change to update our state. Then we are going to re-render our updates and the values based on the changes that happen. So this kind of completes the cycle of two-way data binding. In order to put this into practice, we are going to create this book filter form. So we basically would like to create a new component to allow the user to enter some filter text for the title of the books, and then we are going to filter the books that the book list component is going to show based on that piece of text that the user has entered. So let's go ahead and create the book filter component. It's not that difficult. It's going to be very easy. You're already familiar with the concepts. So I'm going to go through them quickly. So as you can see, we are creating this local reactive piece of data or state called filter text, and then we have created this event handler. We talked about this I guess in episode 3. This is the template. If you take a look here, we've got this input, and whenever some change happens to that input, we are going to trigger an event handler, and this event handler is gonna basically emit a custom event. Do you remember custom events in episode 3? I guess 3 or 4, I'm not sure. Anyway, what we are doing here is that first we are capturing that input element, right? e.target. We are let's say casting this, converting this to an HTML input element. Then we are going to update that reactive state filter text based on the value of that input element, and then we are going to dispatch a custom event called filter changed. We are going to pass the filter text, the updated value as our detail, and then we are going to set bubbles and compose, which we already discussed in episode 4, to true. And then we are going to show the value inside of the filter text inside of this input. So this input is now kind of data bound to that filter text in a two-way let's say approach. So we've got a two-way data binding using value to show the filter text and using @input to trigger a custom event whenever the value inside of this input, changes. So this is the way to, create two-way data binding. This is again something that in React, we need to do in React, because in React, we do not have built-in two-way data binding support. But in Angular, we do. So let's go ahead and create this book filter component. So I'm going to create a new branch, episode 6, book filter. I'm going to close out this guy, and let me write the book filter component. Let's create the styles. And the local state, and then the event handler for that input. Now the template, we are going to render a simple input and then implement two-way data binding. So this is it. Let's continue with the notes. So I have provided some brief explanation here as well. This is the local internal reactive state. So this declares a reactive internal state to store the input's text. When the user types into the input box, this function will get triggered. And this function will update that local state called filter text with the current value, as you can see here, of this input that triggered this event. And then we are going to dispatch this custom event called filter changed. This custom event is a way to communicate with another component, which we will see in a minute. So after updating, it emits a custom filter changed event with a new text. So the parent component, which in this case is going to be book list, can react to it. How is book list going to react to this? It will filter the books that it is showing based on this filter text. So bubbles and composed are set to true. We already, discussed these in full depth in episode 4. So this means that the event can reach the parent properly, even though the component is inside of its, shadow DOM. Now we want to integrate this book filter with our book list. There are different places that we need to change. And I am going to, change those one step at a time. So this is the, book list component, which we already have. So first off, we are going to create this, local internal state called filter text. These are the, functions from the previous episode. Then we are creating this, event handler called onFilterChanged. Whenever the filter text is changed, we are going to get that from the, let's say, the detail of the custom event that the book filter triggered. We are going to capture that inside of that local state that we have, filter text. And then these are, again, things from the previous episode. And inside of the template, we are constructing this filtered books. Based on the, books array that we maintain inside of this component, we are going to filter the books and only return the books whose title kind of includes the text inside of that filter text. And here, instead of mapping over the, books array, we are going to map over the filtered books. Now, let me go ahead and update the book list component, one step at a time. First, as I said, I am going to create this, local private state. And the next step would be to create an event handler onFilterChanged. And the next step would be to create that filtered, books. And here, whenever we want to go through, the filtered books, the books, we do not go over the, you know, let me get rid of this, filtered books. We do not go over the, books array, but the filtered books array. And then here, as you can see, we are, creating a book filter component instance here. I mean, in the inside of the first portion of this, let's say template, because this template has two portions. Inside of the first portion, we are going to create an instance of the book filter component, and it has, as you can remember, this custom event called filter changed. We are going to handle this using the event handler we just created, and it will render this filter, book filter component above that book list template. So let me go ahead and here, before creating this div element, I am going to create an instance of this, book filter component. And I am going to handle the custom event that it has using that, event handler which we created. Now let me continue talking about the code. So the book filter holds the internal state for input and emits the filter change, custom event on every keystroke. And then the book list listens for the filter changed and updates its own filter text state. It filters, the books it wants to show inside of the render, method or function. And then the inputs value is bound to the state as we discussed in the book filter component. So the UI always reflects the current state. This completes our two-way data binding. Now inside of the main.ts, all we need to do now is to import the book filter component. I think I forgot to put it inside of our components folder. Yes, this needs to go inside of our book list. Now, book filter. So there are different books here. I do not have any, filters right now, but if I go ahead and type something, I will immediately, get the book whose title matches the filter text that I have, added inside of this input. And that happens, very interactively, if you will. I mean, on every keystroke, we are getting the changes in the book list, component. So for example, if I type G, I get two, books, because Mockingbird contains this letter G, and of course this one as well. Great. What was the name of the book? Yeah, Great Gatsby. And if I type an R in there, I only get one book. So the two-way data binding is working correctly. So the recap of this episode, we talked about handling for inputs in lit components. We, updated the component state based on the input that the user provides. We implemented two-way data binding with event handlers, very similar to the way React works. Again, remember, in Angular, you have two-way data binding built in using ng model. In React or lit, you do not have two-way data binding. And now we are, communicating input changes to our parent components using a custom event called book filter. And that was it for this episode. Again, I hope you've enjoyed watching this. If that's the case, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next episode.